Now we move on to our next session on fostering cultural effectiveness through dynamic learning, HR strategies for enhanced organizational growth and adaptability. And I would request Ms. Manisha Kelkar, CHRO, Nuvoco Vistas Corp Limited, to please come on the dais. She is the Chief Human Resources Officer at Nuvoco Vistas Corp Limited. With over 20 years of experience, she has spearheaded innovative HR strategies, emphasizing performance, leadership development, and change management. She is a catalyst for transforming HR functions, driving diversity, and leading strategic initiatives at Nuvoco.
Good afternoon, good evening. I have been told 15 minutes, so I'm going to make a slight change in what I was planning to talk to you all about. Of course, the subject is cultural effectiveness through dynamic learning, and two things I want to state firsthand, that when it comes to effective learning initiatives in the organization, one very important aspect is the context, because if we don't understand why that learning initiative is required and all our key stakeholders are not aligned with us in terms of how that's going to help the organization, it will not work. No matter which e-learning platform you get, how interesting the training program is, people will attend the program. After 2 days, everybody is going to forget about it. So that's why I think first and foremost is the context of the organization and what you're doing and the energy that you're investing in, whether it's relevant and all key stakeholders are aligned or not. And the second aspect is, I don't know how many of you have the COE and HRBP structure, which is very famous today. When I started my career, we didn't have this HRBP COE structure, like L&D team doing something in one vertical and HR business partners then working very closely with the business doing other things. I think when it comes to effectiveness of learning interventions, it's very important that these two verticals work together as one. Because HRBPs are the people who are going to be day in, day out, touch with all your employees, working closely with the functions, knowing what the functions are going through, what their need is. So if you have L&D who will in isolation design something and who want to drive it, won't work. Both have to work very, very closely together. So I think those are the two things I thought important for us to note before we move on the subject. And I was thinking of keeping 3 parts to this conversation, but I'm going to completely skip the part 1 of the context because 15 minutes, I think looking at the audience in this room, you all will be more interested in understanding what we did differently and then what we achieved because of that. So I'm not going to bore you all with cement industry details, etc. But very interesting industry, very large industry in India. Very tough competition right now. Entire industry has gone through very difficult time during COVID, post-COVID, because of lot of cost pressures. And performance when it comes to which company is going to do better than the other company. So there's only one slide on the context piece where I will take a pause, is this. So these are the top 5 players. Now why this data is easy to present is because all are listed organizations. If you go on the sites also, you will be able to see the top 5 players, how the EBITDA quarter on quarter is moving. And what's interesting to notice is, if you see where the FY24 is going, how the gap between the EBITDA of all the players is narrowing. So you can see how there's a tough fight to get the biggest piece of the pie. So when you are in part of such industry and this kind of a pause movement, obviously people and how effectively your people work and how well they work, how we are able to channelize the energies of everybody in the organization in the right direction makes a huge, huge difference. So that's where the whole journey started. And for us, we felt that as an organization, we'd gone through certain transitions before this period. So what we felt is a good time for us to revisit the competencies, because competencies, leadership competencies, behaviors is something which is all encompassing, and it's a very good anchor if you want all employees of the organization to work and focus in one direction. So that's where the whole journey of new competencies started, which of course we all know is a combination of attitude, skills, knowledge. One very one moment I would like to take is the journey of deciding about these new competencies. So it is not only about looking at where is the world going, what are the latest things which are happening in different industries, etc. I think we also made it very contextual in terms of engaging in conversation with our entire senior leadership team, starting with the chairman, then doing a lot of focus group discussions within the organization with different employee sets also to understand what they have seen as work well, what are the areas they see we as an organization need to do well, which are the quick wins they see. Because in the competency framework, we need to look at what are the strengths, existing strengths of the organization, and also what opportunities we need to focus on. So that's where it was like a huge exercise. We took very long, honestly, more than I would have personally liked to take to zero down on these competencies and articulate them. But I would say, okay, time well invested, because then final output that we got is well accepted. And as I said, your senior management commitment is very, very important. So we coined it FitChamp, as you must have seen in the earlier slide, and this is what the competencies expand to. I'm not going to get into that because it's English that you see in most of the companies' competencies. When it comes to competencies and values of any organization you pick up, you will see very similar sentiments. Of course, how they are driven and how well they are linked to what we want to see in the organization is what makes the difference. So making it all work is what makes a difference. And this is something we have been following in my organization about when it comes to driving any change in the company. And if you see closely, this is kind of adaptation, and I have no problem in accepting that this is all the learning I got from Edgar Schein, his view of organization culture, where he talks about 3 layers. First one, which is a very tacit kind of a thing where all the shared assumptions, values, etc. sit. Second layer, which is more explicit, which is what your management is saying and doing about whatever is being talked about. And the last one, which he calls artifacts, which is basically everything that's visible to you in terms of whether behavior, even your office space, or for that matter, dress code, what people are doing, etc., etc. But here a little difference is, of course, one part is consciously creating those shared stories, experiences, which set the foundation. Because whenever we change the organization, in the new organization, you will always find one friend who has spent a lot of time in that organization, who will catch you over a coffee at some point of a time in your first month for sure, and tell you good stories of that organization. And those stories are the real stories or the crux of the culture that you will get to know about that organization. Everybody may not talk about it, but that is what will be the widely understood and prevailing thing that you will see in the organization. So one very important thing as HR people, I think we need to be very conscious of what kind of stories are we creating. Because these stories also, we are very powerful people, CHROs and HR team, very powerful people. We have the capability of creating those stories that people will keep talking about for years together. So conscious effort on what kind of stories we are creating and making it real more than what your leaders will say. Because I don't know how many people in this room can vouch that once I have trained my senior leadership team on my competencies and values, etc., I'm very sure that's what they will talk about at every forum. They will not talk about it. So what people notice is how people behave and what experience is created for them every day in the organization more than what the boss is talking about. And I felt that's where what kind of systems and processes are there, what kind of HR practices are there, what kind of role models are we putting in the organization, who are the people we are showcasing as good performers, what kind of actions we are taking on the non-performers. And of course, then the branding of the whole thing, because that is something very real. That's what everybody is seeing day in, day out, and these are the pillars which are going to keep that initiative, that whatever thing that you want to drive, very live and real for people. And the last one, drivers, which is basically something that we'll have to continuously keep reinforcing. It is, of course, explicit values, how you communicate, what you communicate, how you make the initiative or the new thing part of the everyday life. And even in physical space, so where are your values listed? Where are your new initiatives talked about? Are you giving some mementos, something which will sit on every desk? So when you walk across the floor, you'll be able to see it at every desk. So those are all reinforcement. Those are like rituals which one will have to keep doing so that it doesn't die its natural death. So how we went about FitChamp, making FitChamp really talk of Nuvoco and help us drive change in the organization. So of course, there was a huge training intervention that happened. But before I move into the training part of it, I think I also want to talk about how, while we started the training, the focus was on integrating it in everything, right from our talent management process to performance management process, to making it very easier for people to understand. How are we? Okay. So this is the whole calendar that we started with. This is largely about how the program was rolled out. You can see from July to December it is going. But it's talking about these 7 competencies, how they will be driven, what kind of programs will happen for what level of people. We talk about largely in the organization L1, L2, L3, L4, 4 layers of the management. So when it will happen for L1, when it will happen for L2, how we will do it first for top management. Some of those people will become part of internal trainers pool, and then we'll take it down further. So setting the right foundation, building the awareness experiences, because you see across the calendar there are things like sharing success stories, conducting certain activities, etc. Because once the program is, I was telling you, if you attend a very good program, it will stay live with you for a week, and then after that you're going to forget it unless somebody reminds you about that or something related to that happens. It has to become part of your life. So certain shared success stories, videos, and then of course trying to make it part of the behavior. And here people typically need help. It's not very obvious for everyone that I have attended this program. How do I integrate this in my behavior? And when we do that also, people usually need help. So we have to make it. So the 3 things that we tried to do is make it interesting, very, very important. Otherwise people will get bored even in that one day of training. Then making it easier. As I said, if it's not something easy, nobody will even think about adopting it, and making it applicable. So how I can live with it, how can I work with it, how can make it real. So in Nuvoco, I think this is a universal learning philosophy. I don't think it's only Nuvoco. 70, 20, 10, we all know. 10% is what your classroom training will give you. 20% is all linked to exposure, how you can network with everybody. And 20%, 70% is about experience and how much you apply. So all our individual development plan, IDPs that we talk about are based on this. But what we changed is actually creating this flip book for every competency, which talks of very clearly lists. If you are an individual contributor, we have LinkedIn Learning, so that makes it a little easier. So we gave here, okay, this thing doesn't work. But this part here basically gives, if you're an individual contributor, what kind of LinkedIn learning programs you can go through. If you're a first-time manager, what you do, If you are a senior level manager, then what kind of LinkedIn programs you can attend. The part 2 talks about 20%, 70% activities that people can do. And then there is a little bit of guide below which says if you have chosen this as part of your IDP, then how you can go about it. So this helps in making it easier. Apart from this, I think weaving it in everyday fabric, as I was telling you, and ensuring that all your managers cannot escape. You have to make it such tight that it is not, it's really difficult to escape. So we have introduced something called as Manager's Playbook. I don't think I have included a large piece in that, but you see that corner there, that wheel, that's how the manager playbook looks like. And essentially it says if you're a manager in a Nuvoco, and if you have to hire somebody, then you just flip the book, there is a QR code, you scan that QR code and you'll get to see a video which will talk about what's the hiring process in Nuvoco. As hiring manager, what you have to do, what HR can do for you, what our total rewards can do for you, and how you close the process. So like that, entire employee life's journey is mapped there, articulating what as a manager you have to do, what organization can do for you, and what's expected. What we have done is, at the end of each section, we have talked about how PitChamp is integrated into everything that you do as a manager. So this is an example. I picked up a couple of examples.
But before setting...
Okay, we can talk about this example. Excuse me, can you make sure this video runs?
All of these tasks that you're expected to perform in the onboarding stage as a manager have been put together to inculcate in you a key competency from our PitChamp competencies. I is the letter of the day, and over the course of doing these tasks, we want you to display inspired and compassionate leadership. This means demonstrating empathy and compassion towards all stakeholders in harmony with the Nuvoco value of caring. Along with being empathetic and compassionate, as a manager, you also need to respect and support and value people over things, while also proactively listening to any thoughts, doubts, and ideas they might have. Make an extra effort to explain your department's way of working to the new hire and how that is in sync with Nuvoco's non-negotiable behaviors. From time to time, check in on the new hire to see if they are facing any challenges or even to confirm their understanding of processes and systems. These onboarding tasks will also require you to become proficient in engaging with employees across different levels, since you have to coordinate with HR and other departments to ensure the new hire has smooth sailing in their first few days on the job. This expertise in effectively engaging with various stakeholders is critical for you to be a successful manager. Additionally, new hires need to be mentored at every step of the way during their first few weeks at Nuvoco. So giving them timely advice, suggestions, guidance, and evidence-based feedback while playing the role of an on-the-job coach can do wonders to help the new hires grow in their roles and realize their potential.
So this is just one of the example in the entire life cycle, how that inspired compassionate leadership, what we expect from manager has been articulated. And I heard the first ring, so I'm going to skip this part and going to come to the last part, which is basically where we invested so much, we did so much work, what it got us. So I must say it's not only just the PitChamp initiative, there are many things that happened in the organization. But what we have seen is we participate in a kin-centric employee engagement survey. So we have seen a change, a 5-point rise. So from 76, we've moved to 81% score on employee engagement this year. And also after 11 quarters, we've seen closer to 20% EBITDA. So I think those are the two things which very clearly tell us how that so much of hard work and investment during the year has worked for the organization. Thank you so much.
Mr. Jalaj Sinha, Head Business Development, ESOP, direct a Capita company to please come on the dais and felicitate Ms. Manisha Kelkar.